Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our Hanafi fiqh class. We're doing the kitab known as I'ala Sunan of Mawlana Zafar Ahmad Thanvi rahimahullah, and tonight inshallah we are starting a new chapter under the headings of Tayammum. So let us begin. Bismillahi walhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So we are here on page 323 of volume number 1. We're starting tonight باب التيمم مع القدرة على الماء لصلاة الجنازة ونحوها مما ليس له بدل إذا خاف فوتها لو اشتغل بالوضوء. That's the heading of the chapter, and the heading itself tells you everything all that you need to know. So it says, this is the chapter with regards to tayammum. مع القدرة على الماء, despite the fact that you have water in your presence. But what is this for? لصلاة الجنازة ونحوها, for a salah like salatul janaza, which مما ليس له بدل, which has no make up for it. In other words, if you miss the janaza, you miss it, it's over. إذا خاف فوتها, if you fear missing it, لو اشتغل بالوضوء, if you were to make wudu, because janaza salah is a very quick salah. You know, nobody's standing there and reading, thinking he's imam of the haram over there in janaza salah. It's quick. It takes, if it takes 2 minutes, that's in fact a long time for some people. So janaza salah is very quick. Some people make wudu for like, if they must go, take their socks off, take their topi off, sit down, roll their sleeves and things up, make their wudu, everything. By the time they come out, 7-10 minutes have gone by. So لو إذا خاف فوتها. So this is the rider in this case. The rider is, if you fear you will miss the salah, then it is allowed. If you don't fear it, then it is not allowed. Simple. So in today's world, if somebody say, oh, don't worry, make you wudu, we're going to wait for you, then you know there's no issue. You can't now make tayammum. You've got to make wudu. For example, if you are you're the wali of the person that has passed away. It's your father, it's your son, it's your brother, you now, for example, or you are the imam, for example. So in a case like this here, go make your wudu. The people are going to wait. Then it's not a problem. Obviously, and I'll stress this part here as well. Don't take 10 years making your wudu. It's a janaza after all. People are sad. You know, there's stress and worry on the family and things like this. Yeah. Now you are taking your own sweet time as if the whole world is going to wait for you. You shouldn't do that either. So you make your wudu, but you do so in a quick manner so that you can come and join the salah or lead the salah, whichever one you are doing, and it can continue in that manner. So that's the heading. So let's read the hadith itself. حديث number 293. حدثنا عمر بن أيوب الموصلي عن المغيرة بن زياد عن عطاء عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال: إذا خفت أن تفوتك الجنازة وأنت على غير وضوء فتيمم وصلي. رواه ابن أبي شيبة ورجاله رجال مسلم إلا المغيرة وهو محتج به. So the narration is from Umar ibn Ayyub al-Mawsili, from Imam Mughira ibn Ziyad, from Imam Ata, from Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, who said, and him saying this means this is his fatwa, and obviously it's not something he makes up, but you'll see this towards the end of the chapter. So Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu, he said, إِذَا خِفْتَ أَن تَفُوتَكَ الْجَنَازَةِ, if you fear that you will miss the janazah salah, وَأَنْتَ عَلَى غَيْرِ wudu, and you are in a state of hadath, in other words, you are in a state not having wudu, meaning you need wudu, then فَتَيَمَّمْ وَصَلِّ, then make tayammum and perform your salah. In other words, like we just explained previously, this is in a case where you see you coming to the masjid, you see that you're coming for a particular person, your friend or family member or whatever, some janazah salah. Imam of the masjid will be leading the salah, whatever. Now, while you're still on your way, you see the people are already making the sufuf, and the people are saying, like people do today, how many sufuf are there? Which is actually a back to front thing. People got the wrong end of the stick in that regard. The actual ruling is that there should be 3 sufuf for Janaazah Salah. So have it a massive, 3 massive sufuf. But today people have taken it and turned it into odd numbered sufuf. But I have not found any evidence from a Shari'i perspective, not from the books of fiqh, not from hadith either. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I have not found a basis or any substantiation for making the Janazah Salah in odd numbers. The only thing that actually mentions is 3 sufuf. Hence why, even if I'm not mistaken, Imam Malik rahimahullah, or one of the Maliki ulama, he made the statement that if you are only, for example, 7 people, then you'll have the it was then 1, 2, 3. Even if you're going to have one man standing alone in the last saf, if there's the imam and 3 and 6 people, making a total jama'ah of 7, then 3 people, then 2, then 1. You will make it in that manner to have the sunnah of having 3 sufuf. But that's what has been stated. 3 sufuf, not odd numbered sufuf. But I've seen it far too many times. People will come and they'll stop and they'll have somebody count heads down the row. Okay, how many sufuf? We've got 14. No, come, brothers, make one more suf so we can have a odd number. I see this happening all the time, but I don't know of a substantiation. If somebody knows of it, please do educate me on that matter. Anyway, so I was speaking about the point that you're coming for the Janazah Salah and you see the people are already getting the sufuf ready to perform the Salah. Now you know, without a shadow of a doubt, if you must go and make wudu, even if you're going to be making wudu right there outside the masjid, so you're only going to make the 4 faraid of wudu, even that will take you too long and the Janazah Salah will be done. So in that case, you go quickly. While you're outside there on your way, you touch the floor, or the walls, whatever. Obviously, like we discussed previously, what are the criteria? You can't go touching the grass don't count. Scratch some grass away, the soil, sure, no problem. You got face bricks outside, sure, no problem. Things like that. You touch it, brush off, wipe your face, touch, brush off, wipe your arms, finish, walk in the masjid, join the salah. It takes you 20 seconds to do that, and you can be in time to perform the Janazah Salah. So in that case, because there is no badal, that's why it put here, mimma laysa lahu badal. It has no, you can't come, okay, we made Janazah Salah, I'm going to make a second Janazah Salah. So that also tells you another point over here. Unlike for maybe other madhahib say, no, it's okay, you can go and make another Janazah Salah and whatever. But from a Hanafi perspective, one Janazah Salah and that's it. So if you fear you're going to miss it, then you make your Tayammum despite having water present. But because if you make Wudhoo, you'll miss the Janazah, then in that case, you make Tayammum and you make the Janazah. Imam Ibn Abi Shaybah rahimahullah reports this hadith in his Musannaf, and the narrators are the narrators found in Sahih Muslim with the exception of Imam Mughira ibn Ziyad. But وهو محتج به, but he's somebody who is used as proof. So in other words, he's an authentic, reliable narrator. Thus, the narration itself is sound. Moving on. Hadith number 294. عن نافع عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما أنه أتي بجنازة وهو على غير وضوء فتيمم ثم صلى عليها. رواه البيهقي في المعرفة كذا في الجوهر النقي. So he says, the famous golden chain, Imam Nafi' from Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, that a janazah was brought, and وهو على غير وضوء, and he was in a state where he didn't have wudu. So فتيمم, so he made tayammum, ثم صلى عليها, then he performed salah upon it. Now what this is telling you, utiya bi janazati, what do you understand from this? Here he wasn't going to join the janazah salah. The janazah salah, the janazah was brought to him. In other words, because you are a Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, such an honorable person, we would like you to lead the Janazah Salah. That's what it's actually telling you in this narration over here. But Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he was not in a state of wudu at that particular moment. So must he tell the people, no, go away, come back later on, or no, one of you go and lead it, or hold on, let me go home and go make wudu and come back. So in that case, what he did was he made his tayammum and he led the Janazah Salah. Imam Bayhaqi rahimahullah reports this narration, and كذا في الجوهر النقي, like how it's mentioned in Al-Jawhar al-Naqi. Jawhar al-Naqi is a kitab written by Imam Ibn Turkmani, uh, one of the great Imam, but in any case, so that's where the narration is found, reported by Imam Bayhaqi rahimahullah. All right, moving on further, he's okay, it seems that was it. Okay. Anyway, there are more narrations than just this. There's another narration which mentions that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had given this command. Imam Ibn Adi al-Jurjani mentions this narration in his kitab Al-Kamil, which is Al-Kamilu fi Du'afa al-Rijal in reality. And in that kitab, Imam Ibn Adi mentions, as the name tells you, في ضعفاء الرجال, it's a kitab which he had written with regards to anyone that somebody had said something regarding him that the narration would go that the narrator would be deemed as being weak. So anyway, Imam Ibn Ali in that kitab, as is his habit, he would mention a narrator and mention a narration that has been reported from him. So he mentions in the narration where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said that if you fear that you're going to miss the Janaazah Salah, words to that effect, then make your Tayammum. Now Imam Ibn Ali, he says that the problem here in this narration is the fact that it is made marfu', but he says it is authentic as being mawquf. In other words, he says the narration is authentic to Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. Other ai would differ with him on that point, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, even if it comes just from Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, then for us that is also sufficient. So as you know, that's why even though it comes from a narration, even though it's a fatwa of a Sahabi, which is now 1400 years old, but it's still something that is still applicable up until this very day. So, from a Hanafi perspective, if you find yourself in this situation, this is what you will do. Okay, moving on now. باب من تيمم في أول الوقت وصلى ثم وجد الماء في الوقت فلا يعيد الصلاة. Another important principle, and the heading tells you everything. He says, the chapter with regards to the one who made tayammum في أول الوقت. You made tayammum when the salah just came in. وصلى. Now you've performed your salah. ثم وجد الماء. Now you find water in the time of the salah. فلا يعيد الصلاة. In that case, you don't make qada of the salah. In other words, let's put it this way. So you are on a journey, and while you are traveling, you're in the middle of nowhere, and you're traveling through the desert. Your water is running out. You lost. You don't know where anything is. Now you see, okay, it's time of Dhuhr Salah. So I don't have water. I don't know where. I don't know how am I even going to survive here. So you make tayammum right there in the desert sand. You get it's now say 12:30 in the day. I'm speaking in PE time now. Obviously, times will be different in different parts of the world. So it's 12:30. You made your tayammum, you made your dhuhr salah. Now you get back on your car or your camel or walking, whatever, and you head on further. And then it's 3:30 in the afternoon. You're still walking around, and boom, you find an oasis. There's some grass and clean water and things of this sort, and maybe a date palm also, and you can get something to eat while you're at it. Now, in a case like this here, there's still time for the Salah. You still got another hour to go before Asr. So you are there right now. You have the capability of making wudu with water, and there is still time left for the Salah. What do you do now in this case? So he says now, فَلَا يُعِيدُ الصَّلَاةِ. In that case, you will not make qada of salah because you have already made the salah. Other ai will differ, but nonetheless, this is what Maulana Zafar Ahmad Tanvi rahimahullah is saying. So starting out, hadith number 295. عن عطاء بن يسار عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه قال: خرج رجلان في سفر فحضرت الصلاة وليس معهما ماء فتيمما صعيدا طيبا فصليا ثم وجد الماء في الوقت فأعاد أحدهما الوضوء والصلاة ولم يعد الآخر ثم أتيا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فذكر ذلك له. So Imam Ata ibn Yasar, he narrates from Hadrat Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, who said that two men went out on a journey, and the time of Salah came, and neither of them had any water. So as a result, they made tayammum. what sa'idan tayyiba, pure earth. He takes it from the ayah of the Quran. Sa'idan tayyiban famsahu bi wujuhikum wa aydikum min, so anyway, sa'idan tayyiba means pure earth. And fasallaya, and the two of them performed their salah. Thumma wajal al-ma. Then they carried on with their journey and they found water in while the time of the salah was still there. So the time of the salah hadn't expired. So same discussion that we're currently having. So فَعَادَ أَحَدَهُمَا الْوُضُوء وَالصَّلَاةِ. One of the two, he said, hey, you know what? I got this water over here. I made with tayammum earlier. So he's like, I'm going to make my wudu again and I'm going to repeat my salah. So he made his wudu and his salah. And the other one said, no, I made my tayammum and I made my salah. So I'm not going to repeat it. So ikhtilaf between them. But anyway, so the one went, he made his wudu and he made his salah. And the other one just sat. Then ثم أتياه. Then anyway they completed the journey. They came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. فذكر ذلك له. And the two of them mentioned the incident of what transpired between them. The one making the wudu again and repeating the salah, the other one not. So فقال لي الذي لم يعيد أصبت السنة وأجزأت صلاتك وقال لي الذي توضأ وأعاد لك الأجر مرتين. Then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam spoke to them and firstly spoke to the one who did not repeat his salah. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Asabta sunnah wa ajza'ata salatak." You had the view that you had done by not repeating your salah, that is in reality the sunnah. In other words, you did 100% correct. وَأَجْزَأْتَ Zataka salataka, and the salah which you performed is valid. In other words, you have no problem. You followed the sunnah. He didn't know, obviously, it's sunnah. That it was each one's ijtihad which led them to this. So obviously, if they knew that this was what the ruling was, they wouldn't have done nothing but what the sunnah says. But they didn't know, so one did this, one did that. So in any case, so Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, you have fallen in line with the sunnah, your salah is valid, no worries. And then وَقَالِ لِلَّذِي تَوَضَّعَ وَأَعَادَ. And then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam spoke to the other one who had made his wudu with the water and repeated his salah, لَكَ الْأَجْرُ مَرَّتَيْن. You get double reward. In other words, and I will put a condition, a point down over here, that this is applicable for the person who did not know, because there was no ruling documented as such, hence why these Sahaba radiallahu anhu did not know. They made ijtihad, and he made his ijtihad. His view was not as correct as the other one, but he gets his reward nonetheless. And because he made his salah twice, he gets his reward for it twice. But now, in today's time, if you know that this is what the hadith says, that you don't repeat your salah, now you feel, no, I'm going to go and make a wudu again and repeat my salah. Now you don't get that double reward. Why? Because now you are going against the command of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You think you know the deen better, then it becomes a problem. Just last week and the week before, in fact, in our Riyadh al-Salihin class, the topics that we were dealing with was the importance of obedience to the Sunnah. So if you found yourself like this and you feel, no, I don't feel it is that good to have made my salah with tayammum, let me go just and repeat it again, despite knowing Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said you don't do so, then you've got a problem. But in any case, you have your double reward. رواه أبو داود قال غير ابن نافع يرويه عن الليث عن عميرة ابن أبي ناجية عن بكر بن سوادة عن عطاء بن يسار عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال أبو داود ذكر أبي سعيد في هذا الحديث ذكر أبي سعيد في هذا الحديث ليس بمحفوظ وهو مرسل. Okay, so Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah as-Sijistani, not at-Tayalisi, the famous Imam Abu Dawud, he's the narrator of this hadith, and he says in another narration he mentioned from Ibn Nafi' and narrates it from Layth, from Umayra ibn Abi Najiyah, from Bakr ibn Sawada, from Imam Ata ibn Yasar, from Hadrat Ata ibn Yasar, from Imam Ata ibn Yasar, yes. Not Hadrat Ata, that's a different one. But anyway, from Imam Ata ibn Yasar, from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Imam Abu Dawud now comments, he says, mentioning that it comes, attributing to Hadrat Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, in this narration here, this is laysa bimahfuz. He says this is not established. In other words, he says huwa mursalun. Imam Ata ibn Yasar is narrating from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam without mentioning who he heard it from. So that's basically what it boils down to. Now, from a Hanafi perspective, Hanafi and Maliki perspective, and I received a question on this just the other day, and I gave a very tiny answer on WhatsApp. So to give the in-depth or slightly more detailed answer on the topic of mursal. Mursal is a hadith, like you can see here, where the person who's a tabi'i, for example, is narrating it from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam without mentioning who he heard it from. So he could be narrating from another tabi'i, he could be narrating from directly from a sahabi. It's uncertain. But any case, so originally, for the first beginning part of Islam, that's why for the beginning part of Islam, the Hanafi and the Maliki madhahib, they were the first two madhahib. So a mursal narration in the Hanafi and the Maliki madhab is deemed authentic, suitable for practice. You can derive ahkam from it and everything of the sort. By the time Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah came along, remember it was Imam Abu Hanifa, then Imam Malik, then Imam Shafi'i, then Imam Ahmad. So by the time Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah came along, he said غلب على أهل زمانه الكذب أو كما قال, he said that most of the people in his time, they were prone to lying. In other words, the time of 100% truthful people was no longer there. And we're talking here in the Khairul Qurun, this is Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah making this statement, obviously not condemning the people, but he's saying that in order to be so certain about attributing things to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we can't just take what people say. So Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah was the first Imam to put a mursal narration as being a weak narration. Prior to the time of Imam Ash-Shafi'i, regardless of who it was, all the Imam that existed had no issue with a mursal narration because غَلَبَ عَلَى أَهْلِ زَمَانِهِمُ الصِّدْقِ. The majority of the people at the time, they were prone to truthfulness. It was the rare one who was the liar. Hence why for Imam Abu Hanifa, if it was mursal, sure, no problem. If Imam Malik, it's mursal, no problem. That's how they looked upon it. So thus, by the time Imam Ahmad came along and he was a student of Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah, he followed Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah's way, and thus the Imam which followed from that point onwards. Imam Bukhari was a student of Imam Ahmad, so it went down the line. So by the time Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah came along, this rule was now, so to say, codified, that mursal is deemed as being weak. But like I say, originally the ruling was that mursal is not weak. It's not an issue. So the Hanafi madhab and the Maliki madhab, but specifically speaking from a Hanafi perspective over here, a mursal narration, obviously it depends on who is doing the mursal, who is narrating it at least. So you have amongst the ulama, you have the likes of Imam Ash-Sha'bi, Amir ibn Sharahil Ash-Sha'bi, the great Imam Ash-Sha'bi, rahimahullah. So if he were to narrate something in a mursal form, then the muhaddithin said it doesn't narrate something in a mursal form illa an thiqatin, except from somebody who is thiqa. So if he skip somebody out, it's not an issue. If Imam Ibrahim al-Nakhai rahimahullah skip somebody out, then the narration is regarded as being authentic. If Imam Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah, he has many marasil, so if he narrates something in a mursal form, his mursal narration is regarded as being authentic. So that's how it goes. So the Hanafi fuqaha muhaddithin had clarified this matter, that it depends on who it is. If it's somebody who just reports from every Tom, Paul, and Harry, different story. But when it is from the high level tabi'in who are known for knowledge, who are known for the knowledge in hadith, that they report from reliable people, then when they narrate a narration in a mursal form, then it's not an issue. So that's why I said it was actually a long story, even though it's people want I want a quick answer. Is mursal authentic or not? Is mursal accepted or not? Nothing is ever really a short answer. But nonetheless, that's with regards to mursal. So coming back to the kitab here right now at hand, what Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah was basically saying, that this narration is thus mursal. Now, for people, like I said, Imam Abu Dawud came after the time even of Imam Bukhari, them. So as a result of which, that view of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah had taken root, that mursal is deemed as being weak. Thus, if you find now another madhab differs with this ruling and they say, no, you must make your wudu again if you find water in the time, then they would be basing it on this viewpoint, that they would be saying essentially that the narration is not proven from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because they deem mursal as being weak. But we would say, no, it's not an issue. But nonetheless, that's how when you know fiqh and hadith and how they fit hand in hand and how the madhahib differed with regards to these things. That mursal is not something set in stone, that mursal automatically da'if. No, despite the fact that you'll find it in many of the books of mustalah al-hadith. Who were the authors of these books? The Shawafi ulama. Go to the Hanafi books of usul, and that's where you'll find the Hanafi version of it. So, nonetheless, people have begun to think that the Shafi'i definitions are the only definitions, but it's not that way at all. Most of the terms of hadith, even when it comes to what is deemed as being mutawatir, it's differed upon between the Hanafi and the Shafi'i madhab. What is regarded as being Hasan, all of these things. But obviously, that's a topic for another time. So long story short, Imam Abu Dawud was basically, he narrates the narration, but he says, in other words, it's mursal, so you need to have an additional sort of proof to add on to it to raise its level. Moving on, before our time runs out here, let me just finish this last paragraph. He says, وَفِي التَّلْخِيص الْحَبِيَّةِ. Now, I just actually mentioned this just the other day, yesterday, in fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in. التلخيص الحبير is one of the kitabs of Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah. Now, التلخيص, and I actually mentioned it in regards to Salafis, because you have Salafis and they go along and they say, and you find even this poison of the Salafis has affected the minds of ignorant people. So Salafis say Imam Ghazali, he was this, he was that, he had no knowledge. And you find people thinking Imam Ghazali was like some sort of Sufi walking around there with woolen garments and having no knowledge. You would be furthest away from the truth and knowledge to believe such a thing. So the kitab At-Talkhis al-Habir is by Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah. It's based on the kitab known as Badrul Munir of Imam Ibn Mulaqqan al-Shafi'i rahimahullah. And Imam Ibn Mulaqqan's kitab is based on Al-Sharh al-Kabir of Imam al-Rafi'i. If you are a Shafi'i, you know who Imam al-Rafi'i rahimahullah is. And Al-Sharh al-Kabir is based on Al-Wajiz of Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah. Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah had written 3 books on fiqh, amongst many others. But many of the Imam, they had this habit to write the book over in 3 forms. So Imam al-Ghazali first wrote the kitab known as Al-Basit, which was massive. Then he shrunk it down, changed certain things. He then wrote the kitab and he named it Al-Wasit. Al-Basit first, then Al-Wasit second, which is now like the middle one. And then after that, finally he wrote Al-Wajiz. And this kitab Al-Wajiz forms such a bedrock of the Shafi'i madhab that the great Imam al-Rafi'i, who's there in the top echelons of the Shafi'i madhab, he based this kitab, this sharah, on that kitab of Imam al-Ghazali. That's the rank of Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah. He's no small fry, and only those whose brains are vermiculated would think anything less of the great Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah. So anyway, التلخيص الحبير, Imam Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he states in this kitab, قلت لكن هذه الرواية رواها ابن السكن في صحيحه من طريق أبي الوليد الطيالسي عن الليث عن عمرو بن الحارث وعمير بن أبي ناجية جميعا عن بكر موصولا. قال أبو داود ورواه ابن لهيعة عن بكر فزاد بين عطاء وأبي سعيد أبا عبد الله مولى إسماعيل بن عبيد الله، انتهى. وابن لهيعة ضعيف فلا يلتفت لزيادته ولا يعمل بها. رواية ثقة عمرو بن الحارث ومعه عمير بن أبي ناجية، وقد وثقه النسائي ويحيى بن بكير وابن حبان وأثنى عليه أحمد بن صالح وابن يونس وأحمد بن أبي مريم إلى انتهى كلامه. So Imam Ibn Hajar says, this narration, it's also reported by Imam Ibn Sakan in his Sahih, another book of a hadith, just so you know. It's reported from the way of Abu al-Walid al-Tayalisi. He narrates it from Imam Layth, from Amr ibn al-Harith and Umayra ibn Abi Najiyah. both of them reporting it from, or at least both of them reporting it from Bakr. Bakr, as you can see here in the narration. Bakr ibn Sawada. Both of them reporting it from Bakr ibn Sawada in a Mosul form, meaning it's not Mursal, it's Mosul. Imam Abu Dawud, he says, Imam Ibn Lahi'a, Abdullah ibn Lahi'a, great Imam that he was. I've mentioned him quite a couple of times in our discussions over the time period that we've been doing this kitab. It's been tonight's the 60th class of this time that I'm doing I'ala Sunan. And Imam Abdullah ibn Lahi'a, you'll find him graded as being weak amongst certain of the muhaddithin. I've spoken many times, but I'll just clarify quickly in a nutshell. Imam Abdullah ibn Lahi'a is graded as being authentic in the Hanafi madhab. We say he is a faqih and an imam, and long story short, differences amongst the imam, but he's still deemed as being thiqa according to the Hanafi madhab. So Imam Abdullah ibn Lahi'a, furthermore, that when the Abadila narrate from him, and others as well, there's quite a number of people, imam, who had narrated from him in his early days. Now, he was the imam who used to write all of the ahadith down, and he would narrate from his kitabs. But at one point in his life, towards the end of his life, his house burned down, and all of the kitabs he had of hadith in his house were burned out. As a result of which, he started now narrating from memory. So the Imam of the Shafi'i ulama specifically, they said that, he used to get mixed up at this point in time. So as a result, they dropped his narrations. But people like Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak is one of the Abadila. Abadila is plural of the word Abdullah, of the name at least I should say. So there are certain ulama whose names were Abdullah and others who narrated from him in his early days only. They never narrated from him. They had studied by him and moved on and studied by others long before his kitabs burnt out. Thus, it is known that if they narrate from him, it's definitely from his early days. Thus, the narrations are all regarded as being reliable. But like I say, even despite the fact that his books burnt out, the Ahnaf still say no, he wasn't a liar. He didn't make mistakes of that nature. So he's still deemed as being reliable nonetheless. But in any case, so he mentions that Imam Ibn Lahi'a narrating from Bakr ibn Sawada, and Fazada bayna Ata wa Abi Sa'id, he mentions between Imam Ata ibn Yasar and other Abu Sa'id radiallahu anhu. So it's actually Ata ibn Yasar from Abu Abdullah, the freed slave of Ismail ibn Ubaydillah, and he narrates from Hazrat Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu. That's what Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah mentions. And Imam Ibn Hajar says, وَابْنُ لَهِيعَ ضَعِيفٌ. Imam Ibn Hajar says, Abdullah ibn Lahi'a is weak. فَلَا يُلْتَفَتُ لِزِيَادَتِهِ وَلَا يُعْمَلُ بِهَا. So he say, you won't look at the addition that he has added in, nor will you bother about it. In other words, the fact that he has added in Abu Abdullah, the freed slave of Ismail ibn Ubaydillah. So he says the riwayat al-thiqah, the authentic one is Amr ibn al-Harith, and together with Umayr ibn Abi Najiyah, and وقد وثقه النسائي, is graded as being thiqah by Imam al-Nasai, by Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in, and by Imam ibn Bukair, by Imam ibn Hibban. وأثنى عليه is praised by Imam Ahmad ibn Salih, and when you are praised by Muhaddith, it means he regards you to be reliable, as well as Imam ibn Yunus, he also says the same, and Imam Ahmad ibn Abi Maryam. In other words, at the end of the day, the narration has got supporting evidences, it's authentic. That's basically what it's boiling down to. And that's the end of that paragraph, and it's the end of that chapter, and it's the end of our class for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. We will continue on next week, inshallah ta'ala, if Allah allows us to do so, and we have not died in the interim. So with that being said, we end on this point for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Until next time, we end and we say, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad, subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.